An event that's happening in our backyard. This is Mecklenburg County. It is a hurricane preparedness event along the Catawba River. Let's go to this live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
I drove down through here this morning and I saw people working on their houses and their homes. And I just had a conversation with a neighbor, and for them, the hurricane was like yesterday. And I am from Henderson County, and my hometown was severely devastated from Helene. But for us we have to remember that only 4 counties away, West North Carolina got hammered by Helene. It's estimated that there were 6,600,000 trees down. And in Mecklenburg County, we had 87 homes severely damaged from the hurricane. So this is the week that we talk about hurricane preparedness. And I have this conversation a lot with folks, and they'll say, well, when was the last time we had a hurricane that came through Charlotte? Hurricane Michael was a good example, Hurricane Florence, obviously. But we always have to remember that in 1989, we had Hurricane Hugo. And Hurricane Hugo came through as a Category 1 storm through Charlotte, North Carolina. And at the time, we had roughly less than half the population that we have today in Charlotte, and of course, a lot in the county. So a lot of people don't have that memory of what it was like. For Hurricane Helene in the mountains, many people did not have power for 2 weeks, 14 days. And so today is the day we want to start talking about preparedness. You have to put yourself in you have to think about a situation where you're going to have to take care of yourself and your family for up to 72 hours. And so what we encourage everybody to do is make a plan. And what does that mean, make a plan, get prepared? Start to put supplies aside and think about what you would need for the first 72 hours without power, without the ability to go to the store. And you want to make sure your family knows what the plan is if you lose communications. For the mountains, there was nothing. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, there was no communication whatsoever, and there was no power. And so when they got up there, it literally was like going back to the 1800s for a period of time. That can absolutely happen in Mecklenburg County, and so we want to prepare for that. We want you to follow us on social media, follow Charlotte-Mecklenburg Emergency Management. I believe we're pretty much on all platforms, but also follow your local news media. And I always tell everybody, have at least 3 sources for following weather, whether it's National Weather Service, your favorite media, your favorite meteorologist, but keep up to date. And don't go by, a lot of folks will say, well, the last 3 storms weren't as bad as they thought. Well, Helene was way worse than we thought it was going to be. And there are other examples. The blizzard 93 was a good example. Way worse than the meteorologists thought it was going to be. They are forecasting what they think is going to happen. We don't know what actually happened until after the storm. And then we're having to deal with it and cope with it. For us to be resilient, it means we have a plan. But personally, and for your businesses, and businesses aren't left out of this either, make sure that you're keeping all your records and that you have those backed up in multiple formats. Also encourage your family members to have plans. Your elderly neighbors, make sure you're talking about it and what you think is going to occur. I'll stop there for you guys.
I guess you guys have probably had meetings since then. What have you guys learned since Helene, and do we kind of take that for granted that, oh, it's a hurricane, it's not going to hit us directly? It did.
Oh yeah, so Charlotte-Mecklenburg Emergency Management works every day. That's all. This is what we do. We plan for all the things that are bigger than your normal day-to-day emergency. So the police department, fire department, medic, they do a great job. But for emergency managers, we talk about catastrophes, we talk about disasters. We're looking at all the things that we don't think about on a daily basis that will stretch our resources here in Mecklenburg County. And we have great resources throughout the state, but there are times, and Helene was a good example of that, when there are not enough resources to go around, whether there's rescue resources, CMPD, etc. And so we have to make those coordinations. So we talk about this all the time. We've had extensive discussions with our meteorologists, with the National Weather Service, and we're always looking at the last storm. So in 2019, this same area that we sit today had devastating flooding, and then they had it again last year. So we have a great stormwater program here in Mecklenburg County, and we're working on buying a number of the houses out and restoring them just as we sit here today on a lot that at one time had a dwelling on it that no longer does today. And so we identify that, and that's what they call hazard mitigation. So we're mitigating the hazard so that the next time, hopefully, we don't have the same outcome.
One of the biggest lasting issues up in the mountains was the supply of potable water and making sure that they had like clean drinking water.
Yes, ma'am.
What is being done to protect our water here?
So that's a question for the water department. But what I will tell you is, Charlotte, everybody, and I was talking about this morning, we have great water. Charlotte water is an amazing asset that we don't really talk about enough because we take it for granted. But I'm going to allow Charlotte water to talk about what they do. But yeah, we have amazing people in Charlotte water. You want to talk about?
Could you repeat your question again?
Yeah. So in the mountains, one of the biggest, like longest lasting issues was the availability of potable water because of all the debris and gunk and stuff that got into their system. What's being done to help make sure that we continue to have access to good, clean water if one of these major storms comes through?
Sure. So Charlotte Water, I'm with City Stormwater Services. So I know that Charlotte Water has a lot of mechanisms to make sure that this is not going to happen. We have a filtration system. We always communicate with our partners just to let them know that we are making sure that all these that our waterways are clean, that our stormwater system is clean, and there's not going to be any flooding to any of flooding risk to any of our residents. So we want to make sure that everyone is prepared. We have Charlotte alerts. We have we have the information on our website as well. Stay prepared. Have all your materials ready in case a storm hits. So Charlotte.org, Charlotte.gov definitely. That's where we would like our residents to go and get their information. Yep.
Did you say spell your name?
It's Janice Mukia,
Spell your last name.
Mukhia.
Charlotte Water?
Yes. City Stormwater Services. Yes.
And,
Thank you.
and I'll add to that a little bit. So Charlotte Water has their own emergency management program. Their director and their deputy directors work very closely with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Emergency Management. They have representatives that are in the EOC. And for Helene in particular, we did send a number of resources to assist with water departments in the mountains, one of them being Asheville Water, because they were devastated. But I think she hit on a very important part of this, which is to make sure you sign up for Charlotte alerts, because one of the issues they had during Helene was they couldn't get information out to the public that the water systems had been impacted. And so my family was part of that. They did not know that Hendersonville water had been severely impacted. We do a great job here, but a lot of things that we take for granted here because we are a major metropolitan city don't always occur in other rural areas in North Carolina. So we are blessed. And I always say that we are blessed here at Mecklenburg. But I always think of this, the systems can fail. And so we had that during COVID. We had a number of things that we were deeply impacted here in Mecklenburg County. We're always going to make it through. We're always going to make it through, but it is important that you stay connected, that you're getting information. If it's government, you're getting information from the government, and always know that emergency management, we coordinate resources and we coordinate agencies and governments within Mecklenburg County and work very closely with the state and federal to get us what we need to get back up and running here in Mecklenburg County. But the private sector is incredibly important to that, incredibly important. And so a lot of the big companies that we all visit on a regular basis and do our shopping, if we can support them and get them open, that helps with a lot of areas as we work through disasters. We always want to return to normal. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to get there.
I'm sure you talked to some residents over the last few weeks. Are they going to be better prepared now, or saying, I'm not going to let that happen again, I'm going to do this time?
They are. I think for Helene, whether it's here in Mecklenburg County or in the mountains. And remember, and when I say the mountains, we're talking like 50 miles away from here, right? And so the important, number one thing you can always do to make sure that you are prepared is to make sure you have proper insurance. Your insurance is incredibly important because the government is not going to bet. The government, FEMA is not going to replace your insurance. That is on the individuals, and so you want to make sure you have proper insurance. And if you need flood insurance, you want to make sure that you are signing up for the flood insurance. If it rains where you are, you probably need to consider if you need flood insurance. For us here in Mecklenburg County, one of the things that I'm very proud of for Charlotte and Mecklenburg County is our emergency management program and how we are resilient and prepared. And when I say emergency management program, it's not just Charlotte-Mecklenburg Emergency Management, it's all 6 towns, the county and the city working together. We work tirelessly, we're always training, we're always exercising. All the managers from the 6 towns, the county manager, the city manager, they lead the way to make sure that we are resilient here in Mecklenburg County. We're all talking all the time. And then whenever something happens, we open the Emergency Operations Center and then we're coordinating for our city and county.
Sitting here now, it's serene, it's quiet, but if a storm comes in, don't let that fool you. Just be prepared and be ready.
That's right. Always be prepared and be ready. And just as you saw on Saturday, I looked at the weather on Wednesday, and they said it's going to be a beautiful weekend, right? And we're like, oh, we're going to have love and life. It's going to be great. And then surely it changed. And then we had a number of storms come through on Saturday, right? So we had like 3 or 4 lines of storms that came through on Saturday. And that is a good example of making sure that you have the latest weather, making sure that you have good situational awareness for yourself. We've all been there, right? We've all been in an event and a storm popped up and we said we had no idea that a storm was coming. We should have paid more attention.
Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to ask Alex Newell with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Stormwater Services to come up and talk about flood insurance.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me,
Just say and spell your name first.
I'm the new John Wendell. My name's Alex Moore. Yeah, I can always adjust. I know you guys have to redo all these camera shots. Yeah, I'm with County Stormwater Services, which it's fun because John Wendell was a meteorologist with WCNC, and I did some on-air meteorology stuff too. So we have quite the similar background. I just graduated from UNCC like 6 years ago, so got to do all the fun meteorology stuff. But yeah, I don't have a lot to talk about other than
How are you guys preparing for this hurricane season versus last year, maybe?
Well, each year the hurricane season kind of presents the same kind of challenges, but they're all going to be individually different. We see hurricanes approach from the Carolina coast. We've seen them approach from the Gulf, and they've all presented their different challenges, whether it be wind or flooding. One of the biggest issues that we've always seen with every single hurricane is the flood aspect of it and the loss of life due to flood. One of the things that stands out with Hurricane Helene was the 86 direct deaths that were present in North Carolina as a state. 78 were attributed to freshwater flood related deaths. So it was double the next state. I think Tennessee had a couple dozen in that same category. But the freshwater flooding, that stuff, it's not only the biggest killer when it comes to natural disasters in terms of weather related stuff, but it's the most expensive because it happens so much in so many different ways. We see it with hurricanes, we see it with pop-up thunderstorms. These kinds of weather events drive a lot of these issues that we find. And some of them, we don't see them until it happens and we kind of reassess what happened, go back and then mitigate going forward, which is what we're essentially doing. A lot of what you see along the river here, a lot of these houses, they looked great, but one storm comes through, wipes out dozens of them, and then you kind of have to pick up and move on and deal with what you got to deal with. But knowing your risk is probably the number one thing I would push, is that if you're going to live in an area where you think there is flooding, understand that risk. We have a website with stormwater services where it's a 3D floodplain mapping, so you can literally look property by property if your property's in that floodplain. And if it is, you can potentially get up to a 40% discount on your flood insurance premiums. So kind of go hand in hand with the job that we're trying to do, taking properties out of the floodplain. We get points that goes towards our community rating system score, and then that helps us get 40% off, up to 40% off premiums for flood insurance policies. So if you're in Mecklenburg County, Pineville, Davidson, they're also in that same situation, but they're a class 5, so they get up to 25% off their flood insurance premiums. So if you're in a floodplain, if you don't know if you're in a floodplain, you can Google Charlotte-Mecklenburg 3D flood zone, and it'll tell you, type in your property, it'll tell you exactly if you're in it or out, and then you can go from there to see if you're actually qualified to get up to that 40% off for living in a floodplain for your flood insurance. If you're not, you still can get up to 10% if you're not in a floodplain on your insurance premiums for any flood policies through the National Flood Insurance Programs. If you live in an area where drainage is an issue, obviously we want to hear about that. 311 is a great way to communicate with us. We want to make sure that the drainage issues are fixed. Like you said, the potable water issue, that's one of those things that pops up during the storms. It's an issue. Is it infrastructure? Is it simply just getting people out there and fixing the issue, or is it a total overhaul needed sort of situation? Is it response? Is it our water quality up front? We like to ask those questions and then reassess after the storm to make sure that whatever happened before doesn't happen again, because these storms are going to happen. We want to mitigate our losses as much as possible.
Would you be able to share what the status is on the buyouts here on Riverside?
Yes, so our county stormwater services have bought 17 properties. We're still negotiating with 8, I believe, and we've got 1 retrofit approval to raise the house, and then we've got 3 more that I think are in the works for, one's a demo, one's I think a renovation, electrical renovation situation, and then the other is another retrofit raise. So there are, I think, another 20 or so properties out there to still talk and negotiate with, but right now we're sitting at 17 bought. Anything else? Oh, I do have one more thing.
Yep.
FINS, our flood information notification system. So we have about 100 different sensors across all the different streams and creeks and rivers and stuff around Mecklenburg County. And if we ever do get an event like Helene, or if we start getting some of those pop-up thunderstorms during the summer, if you're ever wondering, where's the level, go to fins.mecnc.gov, and that'll tell you exactly flood stage, where everything kind of stands. And we're also pushing a product that we're developing in-house to project stream levels and creek levels in the 24 to 48 hour range, so we can kind of get ahead of the storm in terms of forecasting. So we're really trying to push that product a little bit more, because it's a great way for us to get information out, especially about flooding and current flooding too. So that's all.